Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we just finished rescuing some Kerbals and we need to decide what our next move is. We did just get a good amount of cash and we have a good amount of science banked up as well, so we should probably spend that at some point. But let's take a look at some contracts here. We currently have active contracts for science data from space around the moon, plant flag on the moon, and explore Minmus, which is all fair enough. We could do a Minmus flyby pretty easily, but looking at this, lots of rescue from orbit. We're not going to do that right now. I think we need to move on and open up some more of these things. So we could return to the moon, and if we did that, we would need to make sure we have our deployable science. So that would include things like the GUAB ED monitor. That would also include things like the weather analyzer, although there's no atmosphere on the moon, so that was not necessarily required. An experiment control station would be required for that. What else do we have here? I mean, a mobile processing lab wouldn't be the worst thing. We're going to be landing one of those as part of our colonies, for sure. But for now, I think we'll hold off on that. What I'm going to do here, I feel like we're good enough on our propulsion side for the time being. If we want to go someplace further away, which we eventually will, we'll want to grab things like nuclear propulsion and very heavy rocketry, perhaps some of these other propulsion systems up here. But for now, I think our biggest deal is definitely to get the experiment control station as well as the cargo storage unit. That also gives us access to the hitchhiker storage container, which isn't bad. We can grab advanced exploration if we really wanted the mobile processing lab, and I think that's a worthwhile investment. We also grab miniaturization for the GUAB ED monitor. And then I would like to have the weather analyzer. That also gives us access to relay antennas, which is also quite useful. Now, we can't push up any further up here just yet. We're not too concerned about it for the time being. Communitron and a passive seismometer would both be handy. Yeah, this would definitely be something we'd look to go for, and high power electrics would be pretty good too. Moving on over this direction, I'm just checking in here. If I recall correctly, yeah, there's the ionographer here. So the ionographer is what we would need eventually. Right. So we would need electronics, and we would need scanning tech into advanced science tech. Okay. So we would have to upgrade our R&D. That's the term I'm looking for. We would have to upgrade our R&D, for sure. That would end up costing quite a lot. So I think for now, we should think about a Minmus flyby. I'd like to orbit it at the same time. We might be able to pull that off. So obviously, our primary heavy lift rocket that we've been using is going to be overkill for this. So that would be like this guy, although we'd probably want the science variant of it. So we would end up bringing in like the moon landing machine, which is slightly more expensive, but we would drop off this extra fuel up here. That would not be necessary for sure. So we would call this the, removing all of this, we would call that the Minmus orbiting machine, probably. Because I'm very creative with these names. So, Minmus orbiting. There should be a space here, probably. Apparently, there we go. Had a hard time getting that caret to go there, but perfect. And I do want to have these strut connectors connecting from here, ideally to here, but that's not really going to work. We can put it to here. And then we can put another pair of strut connectors just up like that to add some rigidity to this potential bending corner here. So that'll be absolutely fine. Now, this inline reaction wheel isn't going to do a very good job of turning. We know this. So we can drop this off and we can bring in a bigger reaction wheel. We don't really need RCS for this, so there's no need to bring that. Otherwise, I would rather have expandable panels. So we can upgrade our solar panels for sure. comms we shouldn't need, so we'll go for like 1x6s. And to be honest, 2 of them should be more than sufficient. So 2 1x6 solar panels. There we go. What else would we potentially need here? I mean, this is going to be wildly overkill. We probably don't need, like, any of this. So if we were to ditch this interstage, we would still need some sort of a transition here from size to size. So what we would end up doing is ditching the Poodle and the X232 and running it more like this, a slightly truncated stage here. So we would have less fuel and it would be burned by this mainsail. But honestly, this T400 should be more than enough delta V. If we put this into orbit, we can see that's 1500 delta V in here. It should be fine, and we're going to get further on this tank than we did previously. No doubt about that. So I think this will be okay. We definitely want to bring... Just looking at XP here. Jeb is fine. And then we absolutely want to bring either Bob or Kenkin at this point. Well, Milnard would also work. Any scientist. Really any scientist. But I'm going to bring who has the lowest amount of XP. And that will be Milnard. Well, tied with Kenkin. But that's fine. That's fine. Okay, we've got all of our science experiments. I don't believe we've added any additional science experiments, so this should be fine. And all we're looking to do is get an encounter with Minmus for right now. Now, we're going to have a very hard time turning here, and I'm noticing that this seems to be slightly awkward. So I think we're going to ditch those. A little bit of cost savings there. That'll be okay. And all we need to do is fly by Minmus here. But once we've achieved that, we're going to see if an orbit Minmus pops in at the control station. That would be ideal. Okay, I think we're pretty much ready to launch this. Jeb and Milnard should be fine. Let's double check our staging. So, those fire. 1.65. We can thrust limit these down a small amount. 4.5%. Cool. So that'll get us a longer burn on there. And then that detaches, and this is all very wrong. Okay, so we're definitely going to want to have these detach, and then we don't want our drogue chutes to fire here. I can tell you that. Drogues go up here. Yeah, that detachment and that firing at the same time seems okay. This detachment would definitely be before the parachutes fire. So something kind of like this. Cool. That staging should work just fine. Okay. I do believe this will do. It'll be slightly awkward, but, well, not really all that awkward. We're going to have a bit of a hard time turning this whole apparatus in space. That's what's going to be awkward, but I'm not expecting that we'll have this for too long, although it will be a pretty sizable chunk of our transit to Minmus, for sure. But let's go ahead and do this. We should be fine. Just thinking through that we have everything. And we should. Okay, let's go. So we're going to fire this off in just a moment here. And that will be absolutely great. KSP is currently not responding, which is not helpful, but we're all good. There we go. Now it's responding. Okay, so we throttle up, SAS on, and realistically, we're not expecting too many problems here. Now, later on, we're going to be upgrading this to be the same width as the rest of this rocket. Right now, we're not doing that, but we will get there. So for the time being, let's lift off. Cool. And we'll just start heading on over here for our gravity turn. Fantastic. And for now, let's just lock to prograde. We'll keep an eye on our apoapsis height. We'll probably have too much vertical speed here, is my guess. But that's okay. In fact, we almost certainly will have too much vertical speed. I'm going to pull us over slightly. Okay, that didn't really work. We'll just sit here at... we're basically at max Q right now. We're just going to sit at prograde. It's all good. Cool. So we've got about 40 seconds left to burn. And we're definitely getting up through the thicker portions of the atmosphere. So that is great. At this point, now that we're no longer in max Q, I'm going to pull us over to about 45 degrees here. There we go. We can see time to apoapsis is still increasing. So realistically, we can pretty much be at the horizon right now. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay. 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. We may lose some wings there. Yep, as I said. I'm not shocked about that. We should be able to hold the attitude here still. Atmosphere is very thin, and these tail fins aren't doing all that much. I'm not shocked that we lose those at that point, because we still had a lot of vertical speed relative to, like, we were pretty far off of prograde when we did that detachment. That's the reason why I'm not surprised that that happens. So it's completely okay. We can hold this attitude. We're going to be out of the atmosphere very shortly. So our apoapsis height is almost to 100 kilometers. And there we go. We'll call that good. At the apoapsis, we are, of course, going to push out to be around here or so. That'll do. We'll try to use our tail fins, the two that remain, to do this. It's completely fine to lose the tail fins there. We really only needed them for the early portions of the flight. And at this point, they're actually dead weight. So at this point, it's actually good that we don't have them. Now we've overshot this. I'm trying to pull us back. And I'm also going to extend our solar panels here. As I said, turning at this point is going to be a little bit complicated. Okay. We're just going to try to lock in here and start a warp. As soon as we are in a position that I feel like is fine. That's close enough. Cool. This is going to be a pure prograde burn, but for the time being, we're going to continue to warp forward. Another 30 seconds here. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and mark. Okay, so we're going to enter orbit here with still most of the fuel in this stage intact. This is a pretty light stage, because we don't need it to do a lot, so that'll be fine. We'll just lock to prograde for the time being. Cool. So we're watching our periapsis here, which is close enough. Cool. We'll call that fine, and now we're going to have to do an inclination change if we want to intercept Minmus. So Minmus is at a 6-degree angle. The ascending node here is pretty close, so we want to, this is going to be negative, so we want to burn normal, I believe? No, anti-normal. I always forget that. Okay. There we go. So that'll do. And we'll attempt to get lined up for that in time. It's gonna be interesting. We've got 30 seconds until this burn starts. And angling can be complicated. We're gonna go on to stability assist, of course. Okay, so our rotation is just about done here. We'll call that good. 10 seconds until the burn. 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay. Attitude is looking good for now. Looks like we overshot a little bit. We did. But I think it's fine. we'll probably be able to intercept this with no problem. We don't care too much about the orbit that we get from Minmus. So we're going to start a burn maybe over here. How's that going to look for an intercept? Actually, kind of nailed it. Cool. So I'd like to bring in this periapsis a little more, since we're looking to get our flyby done and then go back to the control center and accept an orbit mission, would be the goal. So, if I can grab the maneuver here. Hello, maneuver editor. Apparently I can't. Cool. Let's focus Kerbal. Hello, maneuver editor. There we go. Okay. We focus back onto Minmus, which ungrabs it, but now I know what the problem is. The problem is that this is over on this side. So that'll be fine. So let's just tune this back. 55 kilometers is not too bad. 1 kilometer is pretty bad. 30 is good. Cool. So let's go ahead and rotate over towards this. It's pretty slow to turn this thing, but that's fine. This is going to burn off about a third of the fuel in this tank that remains. We're going to be operating off of this for a long time. I mean, like I said, this is a very light payload, so this isn't shocking to me. Okay. Trying to head down a little bit over here. And let's just go ahead and freeze that momentum. There we go. And let's position a little bit more accurately. There. Okay, so we're going to burn this in about 2 minutes. Fantastic. About 1 minute. And we're going to burn it in about 30 seconds. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, mark. And off we go to Minmus with our 2 tail fins. There's a lot of fuel in this still, and I mean, realistically, we could probably land, or we could definitely land on Minmus with this, but it's not set up for that. We're not going to do that. Okay. How are we doing? We're not quite there yet. Okay. So we're going to head on over here and get that last little bit of burn done. That is not quite where we want to be. This thing is very, very bulky. I mean, that's to be expected given just how much weight is still in this thing. But it's fine. It's fine. We've got enough delta V to get almost anywhere we want to. Almost. Okay. You know what? This is good enough. So we're going to warp over to here in 9 days. Goodbye, Kerbal. Goodbye, Moon. We will be back. So we'll be in Minmus soon. Is that Minmus there? Yeah, that should be Minmus there. Cool. Why, hello, Minmus. We've not been here before. So we can grab a bunch of science, of course, but there's our contract parameters complete. So let's head back to the Space Center real quick. We'll grab the science in a moment. I want to see if there's an orbit Minmus mission here. We've concluded our flyby of Minmus, although we may still have to return from the flyby of Minmus, but I don't think so. I think the contract was only to enter flyby of Minmus. Explore the moon, docking on or around the moon. That's something that we will do eventually. Science data from surface of the moon. Again, that's something that we will definitely do. Unfortunately, nothing here for entering orbit around Minmus. Okay. So the question is, do we just accept this free return trajectory that we've got? And come back to Minmus when we have a contract to orbit it? I think that's what we do. So we're going to grab our in-space high science here, for sure. We'll have Milnard EVA here and grab the EVA report. We'll grab all of our other science. There we go. And we will collect all of our science up here. Cool. Now we can have Milnard EVA. And we are, of course, going to fly on up over this direction. Opening up the service bay. And we will store this information here in a moment. If I can get close enough. There we go. Restore the Mystery Goo Containment Unit. Restore the Science Junior. Observe. And conduct material study. We'll keep that experiment. We will collect this data and restore. And we will collect this data and restore. Observe the Mystery Goo. And conduct the material study. We'll close the service bay. And we will keep this experiment. We'll just close these doors. And we'll just drift on down back inside. Cool. Okay, so we have data in our collection unit. We have data in our reentry module. And we have data in the actual science modules. So at this point, we need to think about this return trajectory, right? This is basically a free return. And if we were at the periapsis to burn prograde, we should expect that to come down slightly. And indeed it does. It may come down too much here, but it's not pinned open. Yeah, that's 8,000 there, and I want to unpin this one. There we go. Now we can kind of see what we've got going on. So that's 30 kilometers there. That looks good. 3.9 meters per second is basically no meters per second, considering what we've got to work with here. Cool. Realistically, we could maybe try to recover this whole thing, but with the tail fins missing, I don't think that's a great idea. So I don't think that's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and warp forward here. We're not going to get too much more data from Minmus on this pass, because I want to save contract work for financial reasons. Okay, so we're going to burn this very, very gently. I'm actually going to thrust limit this down to 0.5%. There we go. And we will commence this burn shortly. But I thrust limited it because it's going to be hard to get 3.9 meters per second without thrust limiting that. We'll unthrust limit it as soon as we're done with this burn. Cool. Another 10 seconds of burn here. And that'll be fine. We are continuing to accelerate a little bit. And that should do. We'll unthrust limit that. And that brings us back to 32 kilometers. Looks good. So we're going to be escaping Minmus here shortly. That's going to be in 15 days. Yeah, so we want to warp to about here. Goodbye, Minmus. We will be back. So we're going to head back into the Kerbal Sphere of Influence. There we go. And now let's focus in on Kerbal. And let's just do a... this is not Kerbal. Let's focus in on Kerbal, and let's do a radial retrograde burn about right here. So we're going to retrograde this and bring our periapsis down, and of course radialing it back up to around 20 to 30 kilometers. Should be more than enough. Man, we can do so much burning here. It's absurd. Like, we can fully bring this around like this. And we still have 700 meters per second. That is nuts. That is officially quite nuts. Like, we're still on this stage here. I would try to land it if we had symmetrical tail fins, but we don't. So we'll try to land this stage instead. We'll see how that goes. It's probably not going to be the best, but let's head on in. Actually, I don't think I am. I think we're going to completely ditch this. It's quite cheap. The fuel tank in the Terrier doesn't cost very much. So I think I'm not that concerned about it. Let's just bring this on in. And we're going to commence this burn shortly. Man, this thing wiggles a lot. It's trying to go to prograde, that's why. Stop it. Stop going to prograde. Okay. This is approximately correct. Should be correct enough. And we're going to warp forward a few seconds here. Okay, 10 more seconds. I'm just adjusting our heading slightly. And mark. Cool. So we're going to burn out... this is not going to burn out this stage, but we're going to eject this stage here once we're done with this burn. Cool. We've drifted a little bit off of our marker. Man, this thing's hard to steer. It does not like to go where I'm trying to tell it to go. Okay. We're going to call that good enough. Now I'm going to ditch these 824 meters per second. We never planned to recover this, so that'll be fine. We'll go ahead and ditch that now. Then, we're going to flip around to retrograde here. And we're going to slow down ever so slightly here. Actually, I'm going to do another radial retrograde burn here, I think. We can get away with that. So we can do that burn sometime around here. So a retrograde burn would pull this around, and then we radial that back up. That's too much retrograde. Okay, noted. Sometime around... Ooh, hello. Finally got those Badlands. Okay, so sometime around here would be fine. In theory, right here. We retrograde it a little bit further. And then that would be when we end up ditching this tank. Cool. So I'm going to get in position for that burn. This is so much easier to steer. Almost like it was designed to be like this or something. And that's going to burn up, of course. That's completely fine. This is overbuilt. We knew it would be. So this burn is going to be in a few seconds here. Actually, about a minute. And we should probably go ahead and stow our solar panels now. We're starting to get pretty close to the atmosphere, and I don't want to forget that. We begin our burn in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay. So we're bringing down our apoapsis height right now. Down to basically this height. And then our periapsis height will start to drop as well. This should be reasonably fine. I'm going to keep burning it a little bit. 30 kilometers. There we go. We'll call that good. And now we're going to ditch this stage. Yeah, it's a lot of wasted fuel. I don't love it, but it is what it is. Now we're going to align to surface retrograde. And we will go ahead and warp at this point until we enter atmosphere. Then we'll realign to surface retrograde. There we go. And let's physics warp. We're bringing this in, and this should be no problem whatsoever. We should have no issues with landing this, in theory. In theory. Yeah, we shouldn't. This should be absolutely fine. We've landed this craft before, and there were no issues. So we're dropping down here a little bit. We are at 60 kilometers, and we're still accelerating, which is to be expected at 60 kilometers. But we don't have all that much weight here, and aerobraking should be quite efficient. Yeah, we're already starting to decelerate. Looking good. No problem whatsoever there. Under 2100 meters per second, our apoapsis is now within the atmosphere. And we're beginning to see plasma. Fantastic. Currently about 45 kilometers up, 44. And traveling under 2 kilometers per second. All is looking good here. $1,800 meters per second. 1,600. 1,400. 1,200. We are under 1 kilometer per second. Drogues are available. Drogues are out. Main is available. And there we go. We can grab a crew report. We can grab a temperature scan. We already have a material study here. We can't really grab that. We'll grab an EVA report as soon as we slow down enough. We'll have to wait for our chutes to deploy here, which will be in a moment. Well, there go the drogues. That slows us down arguably enough. So let's go into this. Yeah, Milnerd, let's wait for the main. That'll be in 500 more meters. Here goes the main. Cool. Milnerd, go ahead and EVA, grab an EVA report, and hop back in. Cool. So let's drop on down. This is at about 9 meters per second. We should be okay-ish. And it'll drop down a little bit more due to the air pressure, but we are landing in mountains, which is not necessarily ideal as far as air pressure goes, but it'll be fine. Ah, yes, the legendary mountain cactus. Okay, so what did we blow up? Just the heat shield. Anything in the service bay? No, everything in the service bay is fine. Beautiful. We don't have this data here, so let's go ahead and collect anything that we've got, and or rather anything that we can. A lot of this we can't grab because we have all of our storage full, but we will simply... That's interesting. All those scatters just went away. I want to turn SAS off for the moment. Okay. Now it can go back on. Milnerd, go ahead and EVA. Scatters are back. We'll EVA report and surface sample. Cool. Now I'll grab everything up here again. Milnerd, EVA, surface sample. Cool. And that's everything we can get. So that will do just fine. That'll be a good amount of science, and that will be perfect. Like, that's going to be a very large amount of science, actually. But with that, it is about time to put a cut in here, so actually it's past time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we are going to see what the contracts have in store for us. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods. I was hoping this would be loaded by the time I started that. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and let's see just how much science we got from that. There we go. 252.6. Not as much as I'd hoped, but it'll do. Also, a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including Casserole, ALS Gamer, Kentuin, James, Shadowwolf, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Video Games Are Not Real, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Unisoul, Kadra, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.